What is up, guys? Bobgar here, and it's closing thoughts time for Mono Red Goblins. 8-whack Goblins in Modern. We had wins against Affinity and Elves. We lost to Nyaburn, Soul Sisters, and Death and Taxes, so we went 2-3. And I honestly think I got a little frustrated in some of the games, especially after I started so well off Affinity. I kind of got a little bit of hope, and I was like, oh man, maybe we'll do 3-2, maybe we'll even do 4-1. This is going to be great. And obviously, the middle three games went extraordinarily poorly. I mean, we not only lost them all, we lost 6 games in a row. So I got super demoralized there in the middle. I whined a little bit. Hopefully I didn't whine too much. That's something I'm definitely trying to work on and get better about. But it's hard. I mean, it's not like I got mad at my opponents. I just got frustrated, and I don't know. A lot of the things I whined about were things I shouldn't have whined about, like, you know, getting flooded or drawing 2 fee lands and things like that. Especially when I keep a 1-laner. That's my own fault, and I know it. Anyway, so I went 2-3, and I think that's about where the deck is. I mean, listen, this is a tier 3 deck. We went up against pretty much all tier 1 and 2 decks, except for maybe Soul Sisters, but Soul Sisters is a life gain deck, which is very strong against this kind of hyper aggro deck that's really trying to beat you out by turn 3 or 4. But Affinity is definitely top tier, as is Nyaburn. Pretty much across the board, everybody considers those top tier. Death and Taxes and Soul Sisters are on that border. I think most people would consider them tier 2, but they're still super strong decks. So I'm not really ashamed of going 2-3 in this league. We're playing what most people would probably consider a tier 3 deck. It is a viable deck in Modern, but we're playing a budget version of an already kind of fringe viable budget deck in Modern. So 2-3 is about what I would expect with this deck going to Friday Night Magic or going to the online leagues if this is the build of it you're running. Alright, so let's move on and talk about the cards. The winners and losers. This one's a little tricky. The ones I put checkmarks by the ones that I think did well for me in the games that we played here, and X's by the ones that didn't do well for me in the games that we played here. I don't think this is actually necessarily indicative of how good they are in the deck or how important they are to the deck. Frenzy Goblin, I felt like it was never good for us. We never ran into, I don't think we played its ability a single time through the course of the whole league, which is a little surprising to me. We did get it out a few times. It's just its ability never ended up being very relevant. Likewise, Glory Chaser is a really good turn 1 play if we're playing, especially if we're playing against like a deck that's a turn slow and we're on the play, but we just never ended up in that situation. So we mostly put it down as a 1-1. It just didn't do that much for us. And Reckless Bushwhacker, we just drew a million. It felt like we drew more Reckless Bushwhackers than anything else in our deck. And it's a 3-drop, which makes it awkward. And it was just hard to get to 3 mana and then also still have a 1-drop to play with it to get it out. And it felt like when we did, it was usually Goblin Grendade, and we didn't really want to Goblin Grendade any of our stuff. So it was just like, ended up being a super awkward card in our matches. I do think it's not as good in this deck as it is in some of the Naya Zoo decks that run things like Burning Tree Emissary that like turn it on by itself at 2 mana. But, you know, it's still a good card. And when I played with it in the practice lobby, I've had really good luck with it. So I think we just hit a streak of bad luck with Reckless Bushwhacker. I wouldn't write it off, but it definitely felt like one of the weakest cards in our matchups. Then the strongest cards, Goblin Bushwhacker is strong. It's, in my opinion, it's just stronger than Reckless Bushwhacker. Yeah, it doesn't keep being a 2-1 like Reckless Bushwhacker does. It stays as a 1-1 after that turn you swing in. But the fact that you can just play it for 2 mana makes it a lot more flexible. You don't get in those awkward situations where it's stuck in your hand like we had happen with Reckless. So I think overall it's a lot better for the deck. Goblin Pile Driver just won us a bunch of games on its own by being so big. It just gets so big in this deck. It's crazy. We don't have the synergies with it that a full Goblins build do that I'll talk about in the next slide, but it still was just really, really impressive. I was actually super impressed by it. And same with the Goblin Chieftain. He often felt better than the Bushwhackers. The fact that he pumped toughness made him pretty good. He gives them all haste. I think the reason that you play less of him usually, in fact, most lists I think that are top tier only play 2 of him, not 3, is because it's too easy to spot remove him, which did happen to us once. And if you spot remove him, that haste doesn't stick. Whereas basically the Pile Driver and Reckless Bushwhacker, as soon as they hit the battlefield, the haste and the +1/+0 stick until end of turn, whether they get removed or not. And since you're a go wide strategy, you don't really want to have these pieces that are easy to remove because your opponent's going to be looking for, oh, where do I use this removal card this turn? So I think that's why it gets played a little bit less, and it might be less good in the Goblin strategy in general. But for us in the games that we played, he was really, really good. And then everything else was pretty good. Lightning Bolt and Goblin Grades felt great when we had them. I guess Goblin Grenade felt awkward occasionally if they were against the deck that was just killing all our goblins or whatever, but both of those generally were pretty good, especially Lightning Bolt just takes out blockers and slows down our opponent when we need to do that, and it can just finish games going to face really easily, so it's pretty sweet. Alright, let's talk about upgrades. Well, this one is pretty easy. Our deck, compared to the full price version of the deck, there's really just 2 cards that are different, but you run 4 of them, and they are $2.50 each online, probably closer to $10 each in paper. So those 2 cards are Goblin Guide, which is a 2/2 for 1. It has haste, so you can swing in with it right away. And it has a disadvantage. Whenever you attack with it, you reveal the top card of your opponent's hand. And if it's a land, your opponent gets to draw that card. So it's a pretty big disadvantage, but we plan on winning so fast that it's not really a big deal. And he just gives us so much punch in the early game. Like, we're putting down 1/1s without haste. And it's like, yeah, by turn 2, we'll do 1 damage to you. I mean, by turn 2, this guy does 4 damage to your opponent. That's huge. So Goblin Guide is really good. We don't get to run him, but the full price version does. And likewise, Legion Loyalist, he's only a 1/1. He also has haste. But the thing that makes him really good is whenever Legion Loyalist and at least 2 other creatures attack, creatures you control gain first strike and trample until end of turn and can't be blocked by creature tokens. So the creature token part, I mean, can be relevant, but it's not usually the important part. Honestly, the most important part is trample, but first strike is also very, very good because you have a lot of the lords that we have, the Reckless Bushwhacker and Goblin Bushwhacker, both pump power, but not toughness. But having the first strike helps trade a lot, or it helps not trade, I guess I should say, helps us break through that way a lot. And then the trample, I mean, both the first strike and the trample, but especially the trample just makes pile driver ridiculous. Like we were getting to pile driver to like be a 12-2 when we were playing him. If he was a 12-2 first strike trample, we would have won some of those games. You know what I mean? Like, it's a big game to have Legion Loyalist out. So those are the 2 guys. I put up a full price list here that 5-0'd. I think I 5-0'd a league recently, or maybe this one was one of the ones from an SCG event that did well. I don't remember. I pulled it off of MTG Goldfish, and this is the build they ran. The main board, I think the big difference is 1 less Frenzy Goblin. They don't run the Arsonists. They run the Goblin Guides and the Legion Loyalists. They must cut another one of the 1-drops too. I'm trying to remember which one. They shave on a Chieftain. They run 1 less Chieftain than us. Maybe they run, I guess they run 1 less pile driver than us too, so maybe they just shave a couple more places to get it down there. They run 1 more land. Yeah, it's neither here nor there. I can see going up to 19, although we did get flooded some of our games even running 18, but it is important to get to 2 to 3 lands in the deck, so you don't want to go super low. And the sideboard, yeah, I mean, it's not that different than ours. They have a few slightly expensive cards like Line of Punishment apparently, but about the same. And so yeah, that's the deck for the week. I think it's a super cool tier 3 deck. If you're looking for a first deck to bring to like a Friday Night Magic or build online, I think building the $10 one is great to get started and try it out. And I think building the $30/$130 one is also great. Like, you can buy the $30 one and jam leagues or just jam games in the tournament practice lobby. You can buy the $130 one and go to your local FNM and play some goblins and probably go to 3-2 or 2-3 and have a good time. And I think it's a very fun deck. The right matchup will make you cry a little bit because it can get stonewalled pretty easily because the creatures are so small, but it definitely has a lot of ability to kill your opponent quickly, and if you like that style of deck, I think it's a great choice. Alright, so that's the deck for the week. Thank you guys so much for watching as always. Let me know if you have any suggestions or comments, and I will see you next time. Hey guys, Bobgar here. I just really wanted to quickly say, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you enjoy my content in general and would like to see more of it, subscribe. I'll be coming out with content, probably not as frequently as I would like, but I will be coming out with more content in the future. And please leave me comments and let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, both in terms of production and in terms of my play and my deck building and all that. Yeah, and again, as I always say, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.